I think probably echo Jóhannes, like being able to see what you're doing in relative real time, being confident that stuff will go down, and you kind of get better visibility of it.
Cool. I think for me, like, was I was that guy that, and I'm probably dating myself here, would get a server in rack space and like try to domain join a laptop to it, and then realize like this doesn't work. It's not good enough. It's not secure. So like that probably was the thing for me. I was like, holy crap, I don't need a domain controller anymore. I can deliver policy from this cloudy thing. I didn't really care about security at the time, but it was pretty interesting that you could actually manage a device from a website. Even though it had minimal functionality, it was actually pretty darn cool because it was a step in the right direction, not having to deal with hardware and stuff. So anyway.
So I can add to that a little bit. I remember, because I got started in IT in 2011, 2012. And I remember some years after that, I started noticing there is not a whole lot happening with group policy anymore. It's not a lot of brand new features. Like you get new policies like ADMX files, but not much else.
Mhm.
And that caught my attention. Like, that's interesting. And then all of a sudden, there was this small blurb in a blog post. Oh, Intune has this new policy called MDM wins over group policy. This is in 2016, 2017. That immediately caught my attention. Like, clearly something is happening behind the scenes that they're not telling me.
Why would we tell you?
Yeah, but like, that's odd. But it caught my attention and it made me think, where are they going with this? Clearly, there is some big decision that has been made, and maybe I should keep an eye on it and be open to the idea that things are going to change inevitably.
Cool. Did either one of y'all ever play with that the thing we tried where like we had Intune and Configuration Manager? Like you go into Configuration Manager, connect to Intune, some like weird animal like that. I don't remember where it was.
I remember
it was so
seeing
long
it.
ago.
Yeah.
Oh, MDM on-prem through
Yeah,
config
that
manager.
was
It was an idea.
It was an idea. I hope we scratched all that from the docs by now, but it was an idea. So what are I guess let's talk about next level. So you got interested in it. And for those that have questions, concerns, like please post comments, questions, or we'll just sit here and ramble. So if you got legit questions, go ahead and post them so we can get to them. My producer will pop them up for us. My producer is also telling me to read the URL, but I need to see the ticker. All right, so the URL is https:// aka ms/join UEM. That is the URL. Post any of your questions, comments, thoughts, ideas, so that we can get your questions answered on the air. All right, so now moving on from the easy stuff, like what did you try first? What was the first thing you tried? Like, okay, did you just try adding a device to the cloud, or did you actually try to do policy? Like what made you do the next thing? So you got the device in the cloud. They were like, oh, this is cool, I'm going back to config man, or did you try something else? Like for the people out there messing around.
I have a bit of a story. I went to my first Microsoft Ignite conference in 2019 in Orlando. And when I was there, I got I had that hallelujah moment. Like, oh, wow, they are actually really serious about this stuff. I found out about MDM 2 years ago. So when I came back, I thought to myself, okay, this is the future. So I immediately wiped my workstation and joined it to Azure AD at the time.
John Wayne just deleted his stuff.
I immediately went there. I'm like, okay, there's going to be a whole lot of stuff that doesn't work. But instead of fixing it on my machine, I'm going to make the policies. I'm going to make the scripts. I'm going to basically start setting up the infrastructure for all of this. And that really paid dividends a few years later when COVID hit. All of a sudden, we need to be able to set up devices anywhere. And I'm like, my guy, I got just the thing. And it worked.
My first thing was Autopilot. It was my first customer experience.
I should have known we wasn't going to get through the whole show without somebody saying Autopilot.
It was it was a very complex configuration, should we say? But it just kind of being able to kind of just go through. I do miss Cortana's little blurb at the start in Windows 10
that everybody wanted to mute or turn off. Like, where's the policy to turn this off?
It was fine just hearing one, but if you were like imaging or kind of doing autopilot in a whole room, just hearing her go off.
Yeah.
It was really cool. It was like, oh, okay. And then playing about with some applications and seeing them install, and the early days were kind of wild. But that was my first experience. Sorry for hitting autopilot so early in the.
It's all right. It's all right. I'm sure somebody will bring it up and ding us every now and then. So when did you guys get serious about it? Like what? Like MVPs on manageability. So when did y'all get serious about it? Like when did it be like, oh crap, I need to get serious about this and stop playing?
Early 2020.
Even before COVID. Was it COVID? Like let's not blame everything on COVID. Was it COVID that pushed you, or was it something else?
It was. I realized that it was the future, no matter what. Like clearly, nothing has been happening with, config manager was going in a certain direction, and group policy was going nowhere. I'm like, I really just need to lean into this, and it turned out I was right. Also, I was watching, I became an MVP in 2021, so I didn't know what was going on. But I noticed all the blogs from from the MVPs at the time, what they were talking about, what they were pushing, they were strongly encouraging people to look at this, try this out. Maybe you should really do this.
For me, it was when I first started dealing with it. So end of 2015, 2016, and it's been my focus pretty much ever since. So it's kind of weird to
you just jumped in.
Think that I really enjoyed it and just kind of rode the wave and followed how it was going.
Okay. All right, so I'll stop us from rambling here for a second. We have Frederick. Hopefully I pronounce everybody's name correctly. Frederick on Tech Community. I want to automatically register my computers in Intune. The computers are already in a local domain and registered in Entra. I still can't say that word. Azure AD for me. I've enabled automatic registration in Azure and Intune, but I'm encountering an error that seems to direct me to a hybrid configuration join with Entra/Azure AD. I've noticed that the hybrid join option is a temporary status that we shouldn't maintain for an extended period. Is this accurate? And for additional context, he cannot manually add computers with professional or school access because my users don't have machine administrator privileges. What do y'all think? That was a lot.
Yeah. It sounds like a lot of the configurations done. The hybrid join option is a temporary status that we shouldn't maintain for an extended period of time. Sounds very much like the wording that it's not where you want to be and you want to transition across to Entra join, but getting those existing devices into hybrid join state is absolutely where you need to be for your first step, I think. Tricky one to remote troubleshoot though.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But you are thinking this correctly in that. So current devices that you have that are domain joined, they should absolutely become hybrid joined.
Yep.
But all new devices, all break-fix devices that get repurposed, etc., they should absolutely become Entra joined primarily.
So since we got this question, one of the things that I think about when I'm faced with this scenario, you have devices in different states, right? Hybrid join and Azure AD join or cloud only join. for me, because I'm in Microsoft, right? I know some walls early and decisions you make early. So those devices that are hybrid join, eventually you want to get them to cloud only join. But what does that mean? The early wall that I always see with those hybrid join devices is that's a wipe to get it to cloud, right?
Yeah.
Like how or like so you're already putting one obstacle or one milestone in front of you when you do the hybrid join. So I always like to think, like, do I really need to do the hybrid join thing? Because doing the hybrid join, I already know I have another thing to do later. How far is that later? Does it allow the customer to procrastinate, or does it allow the customer to put the right things in place, which will still end up in procrastination?
Getting to that hybrid join state and then Intune enrolling via GPO then means they're in Intune, and you can benefit from, shifting all of your patching. Suddenly you can use WFB or auto patch. I think there's a lot of pretty immediate value you can get from that. And getting them to that state means that you can then potentially bring them into autopilot. How would you do that?
Hard for you, James. Every time you say autopilot.
I haven't had said hybrid or autopilot, so it could be worse.
Yeah, it could be.
But like I said before, existing devices, hybrid join, absolutely, that's fine. But if they break or they get repurposed, you Entra join them. When you replace machines, Entra join them. So if you're life cycling your laptops every 3 years, more than half of your fleet is going to be Entra joined within 18 months.
Yeah.
That's just how it goes. If it's 5 years, the same thing. Or roughly halfway through it, you're going to have most of your devices there.
Yep. Good stuff. Yeah. So
but the important thing is to start doing this. Plan ahead. Don't wait, 2 more years, 3 more years, 5 more years. Start now. It's a lot. I've helped so many people do this, but it's a lot easier than you think.
Yeah.
And it really does add significant value to the experience.
Yeah.
Both for the admin and the end user.
Yeah, I definitely echo that. Planning is key. I used to tell my team when I was corporate, like, hey, more planning than execution. If you plan, better you plan, the smoother your execution will be. The execution will be smoother. It still may be timely, but it'll still be smooth. You don't want surprises while you're executing, because surprises end up into back to the whiteboard, back to the drawing board, where they need some more time, and then you wind up never moving on, procrastinating, and finding workarounds for stuff that you don't really need to. All right, so before I keep on the soapbox, I'll move on to the next question. Dialing on tech community. I'm running into an interesting issue. Current workflow we have is when a employee is termed, I guess that means terminated, their Azure AD account is disabled, and then we no longer sync to Azure AD. Therefore, the user account gets deleted in Azure. This has a good chance of happening before we get all the users' equipment back and wiped in Intune. Additional context. There's a lot of additional context. Issue I have is that the user has an iOS device enrolled under single enrollment, under the user, but since the user is no longer in Azure, the device will never wipe when sending it a wipe command until the user is recovered back into Azure. I didn't actually realize that you have to recover.
Okay, it's been a while, but I believe there is a setting in the Entra sync tool that when you disable the on-prem account, it doesn't delete it in the cloud. It just makes it disable.
There is.
Yeah, but if you move it out of scope, it would disappear. This feels like a kind of process flow.
It does.
Improvement that needs to happen just with the way that things work.
Seems like the steps need to be reordered.
Yeah. And stepping away slightly from the question, I think that's another thing that comes up time and time again is that just because your processes have been a certain way doesn't mean that they're going to be able to stay that way, or that they don't need to be reviewed, because things like this feel like an example of that. And that can be tricky, who's in charge of those processes, but your help desk and that workflow, if that's kind of triggering that wipe first, that just kind of a small change to that process that might help that, rather than then having to go and kind of do rework and re-enable a user and bring them back in. And that's kind of all I got on that one.
Yeah, I mean, simple answer here, I think, is to review your process and reorganize. Because that could easily solve your problem. I think you might wind up with a different technical issue that I won't seed, but you could look at those steps, reorganize them, and then probably be in a better spot. I guess Steve's watching too. Hey, Steve, wish you were here. Enjoy Disney World. I think Steve's over at Disney World somewhere. We've traded places, evidently. All right, John from Tech Community. What is your preferred method for unattended remote access to endpoints managed by Intune, given that remote help does not support unattended access?
Gee, do you want us to recommend third-party products on the Microsoft podcast? Gee.
Hey, I like the show because we're transparent. So what are our gaps first? Let's talk about remote help. What are the gaps in remote help?
It's the unattended remote access for sure.
Yeah,
it is really annoying.
So what do you do as your workaround?
Third party.
What is it? Like, it's fine. What is it?
Oh yeah, we use a product from Beyond Trust called Remote Control, I think.
Yeah, I've heard of that one. I've heard of TeamViewer, BombGuard, Remote.
Yeah, it's BombGuard. Yeah, it's a rebrand of BombGuard. Yeah.
But hey, I love the feedback. I love the comment. Like, again, the show is about being transparent. So where our gaps are, that's just what our PMs need to hear, and we need to eventually go after. So let's just stay out of the app world so nobody beats me up too much. All right. Well, we got some questions coming in. I won't do the rambling. I will get to the questions. Well, James, do you want to add to that one at all?
No, I don't think I've got anything to add to that one.
All right, cool. Question from Daniel. You can have this one then, James. I'm relatively new to adminning Intune. I've been set to task. I have been set a task to create a policy that excludes users from using any M365 resources on their personal mobile devices. I'm hitting a wall. How to achieve this? Any help would be appreciated.
That's a conditional access policy.
Yeah, that's not an Intune.
Yeah.
You need to speak to whoever manages your conditional access policies.
There you go. Easy answer. That was the easy one.
Yep.
All right, so let's talk about. So Jóhannes has done something pretty interesting. I'm just going to open the door. We're 20 minutes in. Jóhannes has been removing Configuration Manager from his environment. So all of us old head people that started with SMS are probably crying, but it's actually, oddly enough, I'm kind of celebrating because I talked to a lot of customers about this for many years, how they could go from one to the other. More methodical, not necessarily technical. Yes, you'll have technical, but it needs to be, as Jóhannes pointed out, planning, execution, thinking things through. So Jóhannes, tell us about your process there. And again, if anybody does have questions, concerns, like ideas, like pop them in the chat, https://aka.ms, join UEM, post your questions, comments, and we'll get to them. Go for it, Jóhannes.
So how do I get started? I mean, I started just by moving setting up co-management. That was a few years ago. Kind of regret that I didn't do it sooner, because using Windows Update for Business was way, way better than the built-in Windows updating features in Config Manager. Then just one by one, I would move the workloads over. I didn't hit any issues that I don't recall hitting any major issues. And then the only thing that was kind of a pain in the ass was the app migration, because there is no.
For those that don't know, I own the Windows app model in Intune. That's why I say next. He's about to pick on me, but okay, go for it.
So me and Danny have actually gone back and forth on this for years and years and years. But ultimately, what I settled down on was I'll just have to go through the work. So take for example, if I had Photoshop version 10 in Config Manager and then version 11 showed up, I would just add that to Intune. It was a slow migration. It took 2 years, maybe. I didn't really hurry. I wasn't in any hurry. And then a few months ago, I started to notice I never really log into the Config Manager portal anymore. There's really nothing there that I miss. Intune pretty much covers everything that I want. But full disclosure, where I work, we do have Intune Suite licenses for everybody. But yeah, and then I just ended up having to pull the plug.
So what was the easiest thing to move? What was the easiest? I'm interested. What was the easiest thing and what was the hardest thing? Like, where do others get started? Like, if somebody else has their config man and they're hearing, man, Jóhannes did it, let me go try it. What was the easiest thing they should start with?
The app workload slider, by far, because that's additive. It doesn't change anything. It just allows you to do things from Intune. The Windows Update part, that was also really, really easy. I'd go as far as saying it's a lot easier today than it was back then, because now you have Autopatch, and Autopatch is, for everybody listening, Autopatch is absolutely the future of Windows patching. It is so much easier. It's one of those rare features that truly is fire and forget. You set it up, that's about it.
The feedback.
I'm getting a call from Autopatch guys. Hey, how much did y'all pay Jóhannes to say that?
Well, I was going to ask you, Jóhannes, when you moved your Windows Update for Business slider, did you have any issues with kind of policies that you need to go and fix? Sticky reg keys.
Yes, there were some registry keys. And there were
Get him, things. James. Make him be honest, James. Make him be honest.
So there are two things. So back then, the Config Manager client, when you turn off the feature in it, or the setting in the Config Manager client that says SCCM is in control of patching, that wouldn't always reach the client for some reason. So just to go on a bit of a technical deep dive, what the SCCM client does is it creates a local group policy on the client. And that's a very undiscoverable thing. So if things aren't working, that's usually the last place you look. But what I ended up doing was I created a very simple script that just clears that all out and clears out the registry. But if I remember correctly, it was like maybe 1% of clients that had that issue. And adding on that, I don't recall a single user complaining or even noticing that the updates were coming from Intune rather than anything else.
They wouldn't know, right?
That's the best thing, when you make a change and nobody knows.
Yep.
We did this with feature updates as well. Everything through the cloud. So this was something that it's a bit of a pet peeve of mine, and people keep forgetting about it. Some of these features aren't just for you, the admin; they're also for the end user. So Windows Update for Business or Autopatch relies on the same update experiences that the users get at home. It looks familiar, it feels familiar, they know exactly what it is. And it's just a better experience than what Config Manager was ever able to provide, in my opinion.
Okay.
Have you got any specific devices with different use cases? Because that kind of end user experience that's made for the user is fine, but if you've got devices that need to be on for long periods of time or specific use cases,
I'm
only saying this because I hear it a lot.
Yeah. We don't really have a whole lot of specialized devices other than conference rooms or some digital signage, that sort of thing. But luckily, I have the backing of management that just these devices have to be updated. Just make it as pleasant as possible for those devices, and That's it. No complaints.
All right, we got a questions, but I'm gonna come back to that because I actually want to dig into a few other things. Question from Simon on Tech Community. What's the best approach to provision multi-user devices in a hybrid scenario, as self-deployment autopilot is an option for hybrid devices? Unfortunately, there are some environments that have legacy applications that still use device-based auth, stopping us from deploying Entra ID only devices. And tight budgets mean delivering those applications using a remote app is not a viable option. Somebody else is trying to beat me up on apps.
Shared devices in hybrid is not. Yeah, it's a tricky one. I've been discussing it this week actually. There's a list of supported enrollment methods. None of them feel particularly good for shared devices. You got your provisioning package or a device enrollment manager account. If you're trying to get away from physically touching every device, you're kind of stuck doing that.
Yep.
Which is difficult. And I've heard of people doing that shared device thing by just building them as a one-to-one user device and then just removing the primary user, which again just feels kind of gross.
But it works.
Yeah. If you're that stuck with hybrid, there's not a lot of options that are particularly friendly. But as you said, Danny, they work.
Yeah. None of them are clean, but they work. It's more of workaround. It would give you a base and then add some workarounds on top of it, and you wind up with what you got. But definitely an area we could make some improvements on. So I would say drop a support case or hit the PMs that own that online and on socials, Twitter, or Feedback Hub, probably the best place to go, and make that feedback known. That way they can actually do something to it at some point. Jóhannes, any thoughts?
Hybrid isn't fun. You're not having fun. Sorry. Sometimes that's just the answer you're going to get.
Hybrid is not fun. I've had shared devices, but the ones that I had shared devices, I've made them all cloud-only accounts, which made it a little better, a lot better. The problem you have, though, is the challenge is you have apps that authenticate not from cloud, right? So that adds another layer of trickiness to your configuration. If those apps only authenticate, this goes back to all the planning stuff that we're talking about, because this always comes up if you plan and it goes like whiteboard doc. You're always going to have those applications. Like I worked in healthcare for 10 years before I came here, and we always had those crappy applications that drag into a folder, the auth with Azure, with AD, no Azure, no cloud. And I used to track those vendors down, or I would track those vendors down and be like, yo, when are y'all going to have some type of other auth? Or you wind up dealing with all types of local accounts to manage, which is not fun either. So the hybrid thing, obviously, again, as the pop-up came up, it's necessary, but just not fun sometimes. And then your applications and other things can make it more tricky. So anyway, off of the soapbox.
Yeah. And the legacy applications or things that use device-based auth, it goes into the plan, right? You need to have on that plan what you're doing to get away with them, what the time scale is for that, and just kind of work with the limitations until that point in time.
And I said I was going to get off the soapbox, but just on it for one more tad. The planning, don't look at the plan as a good or bad plan. Just look at the plan as if you have a plan for when X happens, right? Regardless if it's a popular outcome, the desired outcome or not, what's unacceptable is to not have a plan for when you run into situation X, right? You ran into situation X, what do we do? Just me being a manager before, this is unacceptable. Even if I get an answer that I don't like, it's an answer that at least somebody thought about. So that makes a lot more sense. But just shrugging your shoulders saying, I don't know and I need help is not really the answer. At least as I used to take it. Like, show me some thought. Even if it's a wrong thought or the wrong outcome or something I don't like, at least it was thought about, and then this is our option. There may not be good options, but there'll be options. So don't look at it as a good or bad plan. Just look at it as having a plan. All right, off the soapbox. All right, another question from tech community. I'm sorry, I'm not going to read your name because I'm totally going to obliterate it. But
this one looks like it's for you, though, Danny.
Yeah, I'm gonna. That's why I'm going to read it, because I'm just going to go next. No, so did auto update available with Win32 app supersedence make any difference with the enterprise app catalog app, which already has upgraded capability? No, didn't. Not right now, at least. So what this person is asking about is something I think I demoed at MMS Miami, and I've probably demoed it a few other times. Enterprise app management is GA'd February 1st this year. There was a capability that I've demoed a few times where you can update applications that the devs are coding right now. TBD on the date that we'll release. We're trying to get it sooner than later. That's all I'll say. I don't want to give a date yet. We have things going on that we have to do to finish it. But anyway, we are working on it. We will get a date out soon, and my marketing team will take care of that date. All right, next question. Hagos, sorry if I did not pronounce that right, but I tried. Hi, guys. Please share your idea, the best enrollment type to enroll bulk devices into Intune. These are Windows devices already joined to Active Directory.
Well, you have two options. So one is through group policy and the other one is through config manager. Yeah. But the devices have to be hybrid joined. They have to have a presence. Yeah, it's okay. Just to clarify on that, hybrid joining brand new devices through Autopilot is a horrible idea.
Bad idea.
It's a really bad
I need
idea.
like a button to press, like bad.
But for existing devices, if they're not hybrid joined, they absolutely should be, because that enables you to adopt more cloud features and find success on that track. But bulk enrolling, and that's just going to be group policy or config manager. I don't have the links to that specific stuff right now, but it does exist.
We'll follow up with some links. We didn't give our producer links before we started, but we'll follow up with some links and put that in the tech community chat. All right, next, Ryan from tech community. I can pronounce that. When deploying applications via Intune, the application can take a while to sync down to that machine and install. We can use the sync buttons within the machine and on the management page to sync the machine quicker. However, we find that the application can still take 10 to 15 minutes to download and install. Is there a way other than Company Portal to instantly install applications to machines?
Well, instantly is a tall order, my guy. So there is one thing that a lot of people overlook, is that when you're assigning the app, you can, I don't have it open in front of me right now, but you can specify whether the app is going to be downloaded in the foreground or background. Specify it by default, it's going to be in the background, but if you specify it to be in foreground, it will usually take a lot less time to show up. It's a priority thing, so you just flood your network immediately.
That sort of thing can be impacted by any delivery optimization settings you've got pushed out as well.
Yeah.
So you could have like foreground and background delays that are introducing delays to your deployments just because DO is waiting for peers or something. So I feel this issue is more prevalent within people in IT who are trying to test the deployments or validate that they're coming down, and we're working on a timescale. We're impatient or at least I'm speaking for myself there. And
a lot of other.
You just want things to happen as soon as possible, and waiting, any amount of waiting is just kind of feels frustrating. But there are very few occasions where you need to get an app out like that.
I would add to that so what the company I work for, what we adopted about 10 years ago was self-service. We just I think it's over 98% of all of our applications are available in the company portal as an available app. We don't micromanage any of this. We have no clue who uses what, when, or where. So that will basically cut down your install time from 15 to 20 minutes down to 0, because the user just opens company portal, whoop, I want this.
I actually am in favor of that scenario just because I like it like a shopping experience. And I'm an old head SCCM guy, and I remember 1E integration, right? And then we just kind of made it like a shopping cart for the apps. There were some apps that had to be on their device as a baseline, and they would get that through provisioning. But the whole way that they get the applications, like, hey, self-serve, go get what you want. If you want it, you'll get it. If it needs some type of approval from the manager or something, we built that type of things in. But I liked it, and I've always gravitated to the self-serving. It made IT processes more efficient. Then you meet the other end of the spectrum where, I've been on both ends. I think we all have, where I want to micromanage the management of the device, where it be policy, where it be apps. End user can't get anything outside of the company portal, or hey, they can't add anything because I even hide company portal, or this is how much I've done Intune. I don't even remember what the other thing in Intune was called. It's just the center something. What was it? The page and configuration manager we had.
Oh yeah.
Look, it's been that long. I'm ashamed of myself. Software Center. So we used to even hide Software Center. Right? We used to install the agent with the properties headless, and you could it would actually just micromanage everything. Now, both ends of the spectrum aren't really bad, but both ends of the spectrum come with, as I used to say with SQL, diminishing returns. Right? You give everybody shopping type experience, and then that has one level of management. Then you give everybody this micromanage of the management, where the application policies, they can't do nothing outside of IT, very strict boundaries. And that's a different level of help desk escalation management type scenarios. So it's a slider. You move it left, you move it right, and you kind of wind up somewhere in the middle, or left or right of the middle. Whatever your sweet spot is as an organization. It takes time to figure that out, whether it be months, whether it be sometimes years. Larger you are, the more resources you have, that slider can go left or right. I think the slider in the cloud world has kind of been obliterated because there's so much you can do, there's so much you can't do. Some of those controls you feel like you needed before that you really just don't need now. And whether it be COVID or whatever your modern management solution is today, or goal aspiring to be, the slider kind of gets obliterated. There is no slider. Do what you want, and here are the things you should worry about, here are the things you shouldn't worry about. Me and James are having a friendly debate. I love DO. James hates DO. I think it's his headset squeezing on his ears. But
no. As a concept, it's really, really good. There's things that it doesn't hit, and problems that it causes. Correct. Yeah. Deliver optimization. There's connected cache, but because there's scenarios where you might need that if you've got low bandwidth sites. It can be really, really valuable. But in an environment where you've got lots of remote people, it can kind of have the opposite effect.
There's those diminishing returns.
Yeah.
The DO was so a little bit of a concept, because I love talking about content management. It's one of my pet peeves from Config Man, and I still try to apply to Intune today. But delivery optimization, think of delivery optimization as that unmanaged distribution point, right? We all had distribution points with Config Man or whatever solution you used in the past. You had some type of content distribution system. In SCCM, it was distribution points. So with DO, you could set up delivery optimization. You could set a device to be a delivery optimization, let's say cache. I call it my cloud distribution point is just on-prem, because I'm going to turn the settings into a distribution point. It's just I don't have to manage it. So like if you had that distribution point, you had to monitor how much storage it had. You would deploy task sequences. God forbid I just said that. You'd deploy all this stuff to it that had all this content. Then you'd come into the office and realize, crap, one of my distribution points is low on storage. Well, DO would look at that and say, hey, I'm going to age out all the old content. And then your content just moves around as needed, which was actually pretty cool, because now I don't have to micromanage or overly manage my distribution points. For those of us that had distribution points, they were nice, but then once they got content or a lot of content, they started to be a little bit of a pain, because you had to have scripts to clean up hashes and resync data. It just became a thing. That would take time out of your day that you really didn't have to. DO doesn't have all that overhead, but it also has a lot lesser of the controls. So if you're familiar with group policy, you can go look in your group policy, gpedit.msc on your local device and find a folder called delivery optimization. Those are your settings. And believe it or not, SCCM agent used to use some of those settings. So you can do a lot with delivery optimization, and there's tons of other tools, additives you can use if you want to go supercharge it, make it better. The baseline stuff is absolutely perfectly fine though. Should work for pretty much anybody. I've taken a large organization from 4,000 distribution points to like 40. Took time, takes proper planning, but they wanted to get rid of all the distribution points of their CM, and now they're fully Intune, and they use a lot of DO in their estate to manage and move that content around. And guess what? They spend so much of time on other things rather than dealing with, where's my content? Well, why isn't this coming down? Do you really need it to come down right now? Or can you wait a few minutes? Because that guy's going to lunch. Yeah, I can wait till you get, like, you just got to find where the things work. It's more of a process improvement, and your technology will show as you go through your process improvement. All right, off of this soapbox, unless we all have something. I love DO though. I love content management because it was a pain in my butt.
Just seeing that question.
All right, here we go.
I'm staring at it.
One.
Yeah, James is eyeballing the next question. All right, well, since you're eyeballing it, you can have it, James. How does autopilot work in hybrid join scenarios? All you, James.
Well, there are two things going on. So one, I've talked to hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of customers about this. So if the device is currently hybrid joined, you can enroll it into autopilot, and then when an opportunity presents itself, you can reset the device, and it will then go through autopilot and ideally become Entra joined and managed by Intune and so on and so forth. However, if you're planning to use hybrid join in autopilot, you are going to have a bad time.
No,
Sorry,
I don't believe you.
I've had many angry discussions about this, but everybody, and this is from my experience for the last 4 years, 100% of customers that try to use a hybrid join in autopilot, they stop using it. They give up. It adds almost no value. It's a huge pain in the ass. It's very complicated. It's very slow. It's unreliable. Adds no value.
Tell us how you really feel, Jóhannes.
It's a terrible. It's such a. Why did you guys make this? It's so bad.
Somebody needed it. Somebody needed it. Somewhere. And
autopilot existed for a year without hybrid in Intune. I remember. Yep. I think it's worthwhile saying that plenty of people have got it working and are fine with it. Just as balance, which is, and those are weird words coming from me, but it is. There's so many moving parts. All it takes is, one of those to have a little blip, and suddenly think of it from your user's perspective. Oh, I'm a brand new user to this company, and I've got my device, and what's this big error message? Like, it's a bad user experience, and it might not be their fault. Yeah.
So one other thing that can be added to this is that the hybrid join scenario in Autopilot at a minimum will take half an hour, 30 to 60 minutes. That's what you're going to be dealing with.
Relying on replication time.
Yeah, it's going to be pretty bad. Where I work with Entra join Autopilot, it takes 5 to 7 minutes. For users to get a new device is no big deal. It's one coffee cup. You sign in, get a cup of coffee, come back, go back to work. I'm not even joking.
Yep. That hybridware keeps coming up. Yeah, don't do hybrid for new devices. New devices, hybrid. I don't want to be the negative Nancy on the hybrid thing. Let's say hybrid will just add additional frustration that you don't have to deal with. That would be my more or less more political answer is if you want it to be if you want to lose hair, then want to lose hair, go for the hybrid thing for new devices. It's not going to be fun. It's going to cause pain that you shouldn't have to put yourself through. And if you are putting yourself through that pain, you better have some really good requirement reasons why you are. And you hopefully you've thought about them enough to where you don't have to. But
I think we've probably all seen multiple people who have spent months trying to get it working when that time could have been better spent identifying other things.
Planning, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, let's get to a few questions. Somebody asked, we talked about that one. All right, and asked, can we talk about keeping our Autopilot applications up to date? I'll let y'all have that.
All the applications that get deployed during Autopilot are deployed as a required install. So you just update the app. But maybe you're talking about something else, which if you are talking about like superseding available applications, that is now possible in Intune. That came out like last week, I think. That works just fine, but that's for available applications only.
Yeah, and I think our next show, my team, there's many people from my team will come on and we'll talk about that, EA, and a few other things in the app model that we're working on and have already released.
It sounds like this question is, if you were updating the app, do we also need to then go back into the ESP and add the new version in? And
yes.
There's a few different angles this question could be coming from, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's like, hey, what if the vendors updated the app? Do I need to do anything? Do I need to go add the new app to Intune? How do I do supersedence or even available app supersedence, right? It's a few different angles, and both of y'all hit some of the answers. So give us some more context, and we'll answer in the tech community. Quick time check for us, 9 minutes. Let's get through a few more questions. I'm not going to, I'll try. Nawful from LinkedIn. I'm sorry if I mispronounced your name. If I remove a hybrid join Intune compliance device from on-prem AD, will it also be removed from Intune or only from Azure AD? Who wants it?
Well, in that scenario, Active Directory is going to be the source of truth for the device. So that device is not going to have a good time. I can tell you that.
Yeah.
Whether Intune will still work, well, it might.
Yeah, because the Entra entry would still be there.
Well, it's Entra registered, so it's a good question.
All right, we'll follow up on that one because that one we can wind up eating up the rest of the time. So we'll follow up on that one. Question from Gary: is anyone managing Windows 365 single and multi-session remote desktops with Intune? Best practices, recommendations. I'll chime in and say it's not really my area, so I don't have an answer for you. But James or Jóhannes, if y'all have
you basically treat it like any other machine.
Yep, basically.
Go ahead.
Yeah, from a multi-session, there's Frontline, type things you can have. Yeah, it's not quite like AVD multi-session, but yeah, echoing what Jóhannes said, the Windows 365, you create all of your provisioning profiles there, right there in Intune, and it's, for lack of a better way of thinking about it, it's just
another
an
device.
Intune managed device.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah,
It's
like
super
my
simple.
approach to all management is more or less that way. Like, why should I treat this different than anything else? And then you'll find the nooks and crannies. But the nooks and crannies will make you ask the right questions, right? It's like, it was a pinpointed question rather than, what's the differences, things like that.
Yeah. There's a couple of things you need to keep in mind. Like if you've got a BitLocker policy, filter it out of your Windows 365.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're just going to get an error because you don't, need to BitLocker them. But there's no like massive gotchas that I would say.
Yeah.
All right. Next question: does Intune driver management manage BIOS firmware updates as well?
Yes.
Yeah, it depends on the vendor. I think there's some that just go in as ones that are recommended updates and ones that might not.
Pretty sure the big three, Dell, Lenovo, and HP, they do that.
I want to say Lenovo's might not. But
I'll try to get David to respond again. Next episode, I think, is our app management team will be on. David's one of them. Hopefully he'll be here. He'll be able to help you with that question. I'll also see if he can respond into the tech community for that question. But good question. Next question. What's the best way to forcefully push policy to a device?
Deploy it. It'll deploy. There's a follow-up. If anything fails to deploy, where to check the logs. So if you're getting errors, Intune sometimes gives you some helpful hints on what those errors mean, and I think there's a whole docs page related to the errors that it gives you. Otherwise, investigating the IME logs is always a heap of fun. Trying to read through.
Well, the IME doesn't really handle that. Handles the
policy. Yeah, like event viewer, device management, enterprise. Yeah.
I collect the diagnostic logs and then go from there. That'll probably give you everything you need. If you really want to be like surgical and go out, I don't know, let's just say you got time to waste, go through event logs, but I would just immediately go through the diagnostic logs from Intune on that device. You can gather those remotely, or you can pick at the device individually, up to you, and you can have a blast. Go for it. I've been meaning to create a blog. Like when I was a while back, I found a way to search logs easier using like select string PowerShell command. I knew what I was looking for. So I'll probably wind up posting that one day while I'm maybe on vacation or something, just bored typing. But that one seems to help me a lot. Like when I'm searching for something, I can normally go to select string, search for what I'm looking for, and at least get closer to what I'm looking for rather than anything else. All right, so that'll be the last question we asked for to answer for today. Thanks everybody for dealing with me as the host going solo today. Steve, if you're out there, have a great time. Enjoy your vacation. Heather did not beat me up too much, or at least she didn't. So far, so good. Parting thoughts, Jóhannes, James, go for it. What are your last words?
Co-management is a journey that will inevitably end. You will reach your destination and you will have a good time. Trust me, I'm living it. Not just as an MVP, as a who's shilling for a living, but I do this for a living with an actual real customer, and we love it. We like where we ended up.
As a consultant, I speak with lots of customers, and to kind of echo what Jóhannes said, that journey, like you're not gonna get it all done immediately. Like planning does go into it. You have to kind of think about what you need to bring from on-prems, because please don't just lift and shift all of your GPOs. But yeah, it's going to take time, and nobody should be beating themselves up about it if it doesn't feel like it's happening quickly. Some of this stuff does take time, and some of it's more complicated than you'd like it to be.
Yeah. Takeaways like plan, have patience, and make sure that you allow yourself realistic time through that journey, right? You can reach a destination. There will be speed bumps. There will be frustration that goes into your planning. Like sometimes it's okay to not have an answer, but it's not okay to continuously not have an answer, just jumping into the pool blind. And with that, hey, please go visit aka.ms/UEM. You can see all our future episodes. And with that, that's it. Thanks everybody for joining. Have a good day.
Bye.